Hey, fun fans! We're giving away a Devastator 3 keyboard and mouse combo courtesy of Cooler Master on YouTube for this month of June. All you have to do to enter is subscribe to Fun's YouTube channel and leave a comment on which state or region you think will be the next to go to districts. You can enter once per upload, and we'll pick a winner near the end of June.
Shut up and sit down.
We're going to continue with the Eastern Hemisphere. And we're going to follow up again. This is where we go on this totally unconfirmed, candidly speaking about rumors show, is continuing with the Eastern Hemisphere. We want to follow up on a story of Team 3646 Integra and some strange occurrences surrounding the Istanbul regional. Integra was ranked second at the event, yet did not compete in the elimination tournament. There are no confirmed reports of broken robots or why they might have backed out. Our producer Tyler reached out to 3646, as well as, oh gosh, I'm so sorry for butchering this, the Fikret Yüksel Foundation, which is the nonprofit driving force in Turkey behind FIRST. And both of them declined to provide an official comment about the situation. It just looks a little odd. I'm going to take this right out of the chat. So Karthik, I'm going to let you go on ahead with candidly speculating.
So, I mean, like, this is so weird. It was like a mysterious threat on Chief, and then like posts were getting deleted. But I've never seen a team as high ranked as the number 2 seed miss the elims before. And so, like, that's kind of crazy to be. Number 2 seed, didn't win any awards, missed the elims. There's no explanation. They go on to a second event in New York where they win the event as either the number 1 seed or the number 1 pick. Then they go to championship and they're division finalists as the number 2 pick, the number 2 pick overall in the division. So, like, 3646 is really good this year. Take a look at the Robot, 2Q Auto. Like, they are a solid team. But, like, it's weird that no one because, like, normally in a case like this where if a team misses they decline because they're like, hey, we declined to pick because our robot's broken. Someone talks about it, but like no one wants to give an official response, which is kind of, this invites speculation. There were some allegations on Chief Delphi that were subsequently deleted, but the allegations were there that there was a CO3 violation. CO3 is the rule which says you can't encourage teams to throw matches. And there was an allegation, and just an allegation, we have no idea what's real, what's not, that 3646 encouraged a team to throw matches so they could be available as a second pick. So we don't know what happened in Turkey, and we can't implicate, and it's unfair to make accusations with the real evidence. But we can talk more broadly about CO3 and CO4 and what should happen in these cases. First of all, CO3 and CO4 violations happen all the time. Any drive coach can tell you that. It's messed up, the amount of teams that are offering to throw matches, the amount of teams that are trying to encourage teams to throw matches. It's a bloody mess. A serpentine draft invites this stuff because, you know, like, teams see that, hey, our easiest way to win this event is not to try and be on the number 1 alliance as the captain or the first pick, but to be that second pick. And so once teams realize they're in that gray area, you know, anyways, that's a whole other story. But I guess my question is, if there is because the punishment for CO3 and CO4 can be very severe. It can be an event disqualification. If there is an event disqualification and a team's not allowed to participate in the elimination rounds, should that be announced at the event is the question I want to talk about. I want to bring up 2 separate stories. In 2010, at the Greater Toronto Regional, there was a team who they were being, you know, dicks to the inspectors all weekend long. Whatever, that happens. Teams aren't always the most graciously professional. We get over it. But they actually took their robot home on the Friday night and made major modifications to it. And on the Saturday, there was an argument, and it devolved into, at one point, a mentor on the team shoving the lead robot inspector. But the team was eventually told that, hey, you can play the rest of your qualification matches, but this robot is illegal, and you will not be allowed to participate in the elimination rounds. However, it was decided also at the event that this was not going to be announced to teams unless someone tried to pick this team. Which, you know, spoiler alert, the team was terrible, so no one tried picking them. And as such, it never got announced, which I remember at the time thinking that's kind of weird, because I think that if you announce that a team's been disqualified for this reason, I think it acts as a pretty big deterrent. And with CO3 and CO4, we might want to have some more deterrence to kind of stop this behavior. Another incident was the VEX Worlds 2014, where VEX instituted testing of motors at the event, and they caught about we at the time I was a part of this. We caught about 30 teams with illegally modified motors at the event. They were bypassing the internal circuit breakers, and so these teams were all issued a 2-match disqualification, where they randomly 2 matches that they had won were changed to losses as DQs, but they were still allowed to play through the tournament and the such. But there's been cases at the VEX World Championship and at VEX local events where teams who've been banned from the elimination rounds, the announcement has been made, so teams know, and this acts as a deterrent. So I don't know. Like I think that when you enforce secrecy in cases like this, it creates a lot more speculation, and sometimes the speculation is a lot worse than what actually happens. So I'm big on transparency, and I think if a team's been DQ'd, I think the other teams at the event deserve to know and deserve to know why. But Olivia, I'm curious to see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you that we need a larger deterrent to. I already got called. I tried to swear jar you in chat, but it counted for me, so I'm just going to curse anyway. We need a deterrent against shitty behavior at events. That's it goes without saying. But I think the other thing, it's swear jar in the chat, by the way. But I tried to call Karthik out, and it said Libby has sworn 16 times, and it was not my fault. I think that we need to deter this kind of behavior, but I also worry about, for example, the MC getting up before Alliance selection and being like, I'll pick on myself, Team 1923 has been disqualified for throwing matches, right? Like, that's, like, not okay to do to, I mean, I don't agree.
Why?
So I guess I'm going on the space of, like, what if that is one shitty member of the team saying something that, I'm not saying that we shouldn't deter teams from doing this, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't, like, call out bad behavior when we see it, but I worry about, like, you got a coach who's going rogue and is saying this to other teams, and then the kids in the stands have no idea what's going on, and then all of a sudden they're put on this huge stage. I worry about stuff like that, because sometimes this shitty behavior comes from a small subset of people within one team, and I don't even mean necessarily like just CO3, CO4. Like, you could talk about, like, being rude, right? Like, it's one of the reasons that on our team we talk about that when you're in the Inventors logo, you represent every single one of us, and your behavior reflects everybody else. Is that a couple of bad apples can spoil a bunch, and I don't know that I don't like that we don't talk about it, but I also don't necessarily think every situation deserves this massive on stage, on webcast call out.
So, as far as we know, I mean, we don't know how many of these have happened, but, like, an event DQ is, like, just such a huge penalty that it's only going to happen in the rarest of circumstances.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you this: First is never going to issue an event DQ unless they are positive that it happened and they're positive that it's egregious. So I think if it's that serious, at that point, it's.
So First is not going to issue an event DQ, but I have heard key volunteers threaten event DQs out loud at events in situations that are not egregious or
right.
For sure. And that's
so, like,
where I'm worried about the line blurring a little bit.
Yeah, but, like, I just don't, like, I mean, we just aren't seeing, if we had lots of event DQs, then I would be concerned about something like that. Hey, but, like, I trust that First has a process that isn't going to allow this happen. It's only going to make it happen in the worst scenarios. But I think in the worst scenarios, I think it's important that teams know why. And especially in a case like where it's clear that this team's not playing in the elims for some reason.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be known. And, like, I mean, like, you know what my opinion on this. When the Einstein hacking happened in 2012, I thought that should have been broadcast as to who did it. I still think it's ridiculous that our community keeps this veneer of silence protecting this.
Completely. You know that we agree on this, and
well, like, that
I don't want to be too candid.
Of like a major sort of punishment,
Yeah.
and such. But I guess my bigger thing is, like, if CO3 or CO4 have been invoked at events over the past couple of years since it's been put in the manual, I would like teams to know about it, because I am so over the match throwing that goes on at events.
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally over it. So, a deterrent would help in that sort of thing. But I think, to your point, Libby, about the team being blindsided by it when they hear it from the MC, I think that if you are going to do an event DQ of the team, I think you tell the team and give them enough time and be like, hey, this is going to be announced at the start of alliance selection. Make sure you tell your team. And
that your team needs to be aware of what was done. And I think I agree with you there. I think one of the things that I try to be conscious of is that idea that there is definitely a kid in the stands somewhere who has no idea what like match throwing even would be because they haven't read the manual, right? And so I think of that kid on the team who is then affected in a negative way by a teammate's crappy behavior, and it's on the team to not behave that way. But I do agree that if something is that intense, right, we are disqualifying a team from the event because of this horrendous behavior that we've said is, against the rules and is clearly not in the spirit of first, that they are out. I agree that probably should be called out. I just think it needs to be called out or posted or designed in a way that is sensitive, like you said, to the team where they might not have all been aware. And on the earlier issue you mentioned, I agree. We should have shouted that team information from the rooftops and let everybody know. But what I hate is that there's this undercurrent of like an inner circle that does know some of these situations, right? There are people who are aware and who know tons about situations like that. And then what happens is it never makes it to a more public space. And when it's something that egregious, it probably should be public, Yeah.
A couple comments in chat. One was, well, hey, isn't like match throwing like a part of sports? The difference is in first. So like when you throw a match or when you play terribly because you don't want to get noticed and you want to slip in the draft, you screw over your two alliance partners. And that's where it's like not okay because you're hurting their chances to earn ranking points. There was a comment from Azeroth double underscore. It's like, hey, is match throwing actually that common? I mean, it's
not as common as 2010, but it still exists for sure.
It's more common, I think, because I'm trying to do this without just like throwing people under the bus. But like, you have teams literally auditioning to be the second round pick of teams at championship, and basically coming to teams saying like, hey, we're not trying to rank anymore. We just we're shutting stuff down so we can be there as your second round pick. And I'll tell you this, what I can say is this happens to 11-14 at every event. Teams are like, hey, just to let you know, we're going to be there for you. And it's like, and that's an instant way for us to be like, this is not a team we want to work with because we want teams who are competitors, Yeah,
and you want someone who's like hungry for the dub, not that is like, oh, I'm just going to lay down here and let you pick me.
But what's crazier is there's also teams who know the system and they know that don't talk about it. Don't tell anyone and just let it happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, it can, but like the thing is that stuff, a CO3, CO4 violation isn't going to help deal with any of that stuff because technically you're not allowed to encourage teams to throw a match. And technically you're not, that's CO3, and CO4 is you're not allowed to accept encouragement. There's no actual rule against just throwing on your own, which is
right. There's nothing that stops you from being terrible on the inside. It's about convincing someone else to be terrible or agreeing to be terrible.
And there's a fine line. Like Azatop brings up a good point in chat. It's like, is showcasing certain features of a robot equivalent to throwing a match? And like that's a ethical debate in there, and that's probably why there isn't a CO5 that says no throwing matches, because teams have the right to choose their own strategy and the such. But the point is, there are definitely times where teams will go to another team and say, hey, just chill for the next 3 matches so we can grab you in the second round. Or, hey, it would be really good if, like, we're going to pick you first overall, no matter what. We're already picking you. But what would be really, if we seed number 1, what would help us seed number 1 is if in qualification match 77, your alliance doesn't win, because that'll make sure that we don't seed number 1 over team X. And that stuff still happens. And there's a lot of weird political gaming stuff that happens at these events, and a lot of people do. And most people don't talk about it because they don't want to get caught. So it gets into these small circles, and as such, no one really hears about it. But I'm just so sick of all of it, and it's
I have a very strange opinion on this because it's a long story, but I knew someone very well who was totally okay with match throwing from a strategic perspective, and it's made me very like internally tilted against match throwing. And it's too much, I think. But to the original point, if someone is DQ'd for something super, super egregious and super, super against the rules, I agree with you that it should probably be called out. One, from a perspective of you can't pick this team and everyone should know that, because I think what would happen in another situation, right, is like someone picks that team and the MC has to be like, and like look back at the head ref and go like, am I saying this right? Like there's a whole situation there where it gets awkward from a show perspective, and then that overall makes first events look bad. But also, we need to make sure there is a culture of saying this behavior isn't okay. We as a community have decided this isn't okay. And when you do it, you're going to be recognized as someone who did something that was not okay. So I think that kind of close that up. If you have continued thoughts, you're welcome to keep putting them into the chat. If you have direct questions, you can tag at First Updates Now, and Tyler will put them into a document that we can read after our next topic.
There's actually a pretty good discussion going back and forth in chat on some of the minutia of this, and maybe we can
Absolutely.
have a whole topic on, candidly speaking, about match throwing at some point. Maybe we should do it like our February show next year, so it gets like fresh.
So it shows up in front of people before March. That would be good.
Yeah.